Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Open Championship DFS Tactics Show. We have 2 or 3 hours until the start of the final major of the year. So we are here for all of your last minute questions, who to pivot to, who to fade away from, the last minute forecast, projected ownerships, everything you need to have a winning week and weekend for the Open Championship. I'm excited, so let's not waste any more time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler and a much smarter golf DFS player. Go check them out. It's simply well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my Twitter and Instagram, where I posted some research and post research every week. But posted some research around the Open Championship this past Monday. So if you want to see the research that I posted, give me a follow at your preferred social media site, Twitter or Instagram. Twitter is also where I place my PGA betting cards, and that'll be no different. That'll be out after the show tonight. So if you want to see the weekly wagers that I make on the PGA Tour with my own money, then give me a follow over at Twitter. And then finally, Twitter is also where I post my baseball content. It's been hit and miss over the summer as summer gets pretty busy, but hoping that'll pick up here fairly soon. So if you want to see some quick hitting baseball content, give me a follow over at Twitter as well. And then lastly, for social media, Gabe's Twitter is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe, and with this being Wednesday night, we will be in his Substack chat after calls to continue the DFS discussion. He will be a little bit late as he and his family have some plans this evening, but he did mention to me that he will drop by even if it is late in the evening. So if you want to continue with the DFS discussion after the show tonight, you need to be a subscriber to his article, and that'll let you get into the Substack chat. But the article is very, very good. It's a great way to start your research for the week. So go support Gabe, give him a follow over at Twitter, and subscribe to his article. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. What questions do you have for the Open Championship? Have you made any wagers? Who are you pivoting to? Who are you fading away from? Do you have any 6K plays? Who do you think wins? All of that good stuff. Join me in chat. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 Open Championship. And we're going to start with the last forecast that will be given unless you have the capability to stay up around 11:30 Eastern. I don't see any favor of a draw, AM or PM. Pretty consistent wins for tomorrow and for Friday, and for that matter, Saturday. Now, this could obviously change. Weather creeps up and whatnot over in Scotland and the UK, rain especially. But as of right now, I do not see a favorable half of the draw. So this is going to be a week to just play the players you think are going to play Hoylake the best. It does appear that it's going to be pretty chilly. Highs will not reach 60, but they've had quite a bit of rain through this week, I believe. So the course will not be as fast and as brown and firm as it was when Tiger won in 06 for sure. But it's still probably going to be more receptive than when Rory won in 2014 as well. But here's a look at the forecast, or at least the super forecast for Thursday and Friday. No favorable half of the draw, just play your players. So with that, we're going to move to Fantasy National, and because this is Scotland and the UK, the wind will be a factor. It's not going to stop throughout the tournament. So I have the moderate and windy filters selected. So going back the past 18 plus months or so, going back to the beginning of 2022, our top performers, total performers in moderate and windy conditions, have been Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Joaquin Niemann, Tony Finau, Cam Smith, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Keegan Bradley, Xander, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Good evening, Pete. Thanks for jumping in chat. I'm glad to see you back seemingly, I think that's 3 nights in a row. So happy to have you here. What are you expecting for the Open Championship? Who's your winner? And I'm afraid when I post my lineup percentages later on tonight after the show, I'm afraid I've probably jinxed one of your local boys over at the Barracuda. I decided to my apologies. Well, if you don't have one, what does that make me if I'm the one that's live every single night? But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be jinxing your local boy over at the Barracuda. I don't think. I'm hoping he comes through for us, but we can never nail him down. So thanks for jumping in chat. Really appreciate it. You've been a long-time supporter. So there's our top win performers. And again, with this being the Open Championship, the win's not going to stop. It's always going to be a factor. We'll scroll on down to the top 25 or so. Rory, Shane Lowry, Max Homa, Chris Kirk, Sam Burns. That's the top 15 in terms of wind performers in the past 18 months or so. At the other end of the spectrum, the players that have not played well in the wind. Takumi Kanaya, Harris English, although he is in better form this year or this calendar year. Brandon Grace, Ricky Fowler, again, much better form this calendar year. Matt Wallace, Taylor Moore, Ben On, Adam Shank, and so on down. Your bottom performers or your not good players in the wind. But with that, I think that's going to be all of the review, especially since I do not have a strong inclination on whether this is going to be easy or difficult. The forecast looks like it's fairly mild, at least in terms or relative to Liverpool in the United Kingdom. It does not appear that the winds are going to get massively up as they could for link style golf, in the 30s or whatnot. I don't see this playing difficult, but it's still a major. It's still the Open Championship. I don't see it playing easy. So I don't have a strong grasp on any kind of scoring to par filter. And even though this is close to 7,400 yards as a par 71, which would be on the longer end, it's not going to play that long. It is link style golf. You're going to get a lot of rollout. Maybe not as much as last time with the rain that they've had this week, but you still have a lot of layups off the tee. It's just not going to play that long, I don't think. So it's really the only review that we're going to do. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into the mixed condition model. Like when these courses play like a Walmart parking lot. I mean, I do too, to some degree. I don't know. Again, I have not followed golf all that long. So, I'm aware that Rory won here in 2014 and Tiger in 2006. And, I've seen the pictures of Tiger winning in 2006 when it was, brown and seems like the ball rolled for days. I don't know. I'm looking forward to this interesting challenge. I do like when the winds are up as a true link style feel. Don't think we're going to get that to the extreme this week. So this might, again, I just don't have a strong feeling this week, especially on the difficulty. We'll go through my mixed condition model. I do feel there are a few things that the players that are going to play well need to focus on. So for the mixed condition model this week, I kept it pretty simple, especially since coming off the Scottish Open, which I had zero confidence in, performed fairly well. So I wanted to use some of those same metrics and filters if possible. Having said that, I did use the difficult to par filter for the Scottish. Didn't end up turning out to be difficult last week. And since I don't feel very confident in it playing easy or difficult, the one thing I do know is that it's going to be windy. So that's the filter that I have chosen to use for a couple of these for these metrics. But we'll go through the mixed condition model here. I could be slightly incorrect in that I'm not using anything specifically with off the tee. I am focused much more on the accuracy. So if off the tee does matter, and certainly, hitting fairways is a part of off the tee, I just don't see distance mattering this week at all, especially with the premium of fairways, so players are going to be clubbing down. I don't have off the tee in the mixed condition model, so that could be one portion that I am pretty weak to. But 15% in strokes gained approach. I am a strokes gained approach preferred analyst. These are the types of golfers that I prefer to play anyway, so I'm always going to be biased in towards that. But 15% in strokes gained approach, 10% around the green, and as I talked about at the Scottish last week, the fairway cut extends quite a bit around the greens in link style golf, so I didn't want to put in long rough, I didn't want to put difficult, so I just kept strokes gained around the green with no filter, as players could be putting on the fairway cut, tight lies and whatnot. So if around the green and long rough would have been the right selection or anything to that effect, I might be a little bit cold there. But 10% around the green, even though we saw that these are bent overseed, they do have bent and fescue native grass. There is one thing we're confident about in the greens on link style courses, is that they're slow. So I've got 10% on slow or Velcro speed greens, matching exactly what I did last week at the Scottish. And we saw that even with Rory's win on the 72nd hole. Tom Kim had some issues keeping his ball at rest with the wind that picked up. That's why they have to keep it slow. So 10% on Velcro speed greens. Going back to 2019, I had to go back that far to get enough rounds to make it statistically significant. I talked Monday quite heavily about I didn't know where I was going in terms of scoring. You see, I didn't use any birdies gained, no bogeys avoided, especially since I don't have a strong feel for the difficulty and what it's going to be like this week. So I went with opportunities gained. And I went with opportunities gained in the wind. And I believe this is one of the filters that I used at looking at opportunities Monday night. And I really liked the results that I saw. Granted, Cameron Young was only 1 year, but he, I believe, leads in opportunities gained in the wind. Jordan Spieth is very high. These players that have traditionally played Open Championships well, I didn't want to put a whole lot of emphasis into it. That's why there's only 5% in opportunities gained in the wind. But that is the scoring metric that I chose to use this week. The biggest portion of the mixed condition model increased even from the Scottish Open, when I thought, when I said it was going to be one of the biggest factors, if not the biggest, good drives gained. 15% last week for the Scottish Open, 20% for the Open Championship, and I used the filter moderate and windy conditions. Look, if the wind does pick up any more than what's forecast, it's going to be even more paramount that these players keep their ball in the fairway, which is part of the good drives gained. If they are somewhat off with their accuracy, offline, can they still find the green in the rough, the maintained rough that is at Hoy Lake, or heaven forbid, can they find the rough in the deep fescue? So 20% good drives gained in moderate and windy conditions, 15% in greens. And normally I do not like using greens for a link style golf because those greens are large. Hitting the green in regulation usually isn't a big factor, but these greens are what I would think are pretty small compared to the typical Open Championship venue. They are only slightly larger than the average PGA Tour size green. So I do think hitting the green in regulation this week is going to lead to a whole lot of success. The less scrambling you're having to do, the better around these bunkers that are very, very penalizing. The rough, the unmaintained rough That seems to be very penalizing. So I do have a strong feeling that greens and regulation is going to be one of the bigger facets of this tournament, and that's why you see the heavy emphasis, good drives gained, greens, strokes gained approach from up here, just a heavy emphasis in accuracy this week. To round out the mixed condition model, 10% in the par 3s and par 4s, did not separate out any lengths of par 3s or par 4s or par 5s for that matter. The par 4s you could maybe argue to separate out the 450 to 500. However, several of those holes, the first and the second, are 452 and 459. You can easily envision a scenario where those tees move up, but the pin placements, and that comes under 450 yards. So I didn't feel comfortable looking at those in of themselves. Although, if you wanted to, at 450 to 500, I don't think it is incorrect to do so. But I wouldn't put a lot of weight into it, maybe 5%. But I myself just wanted to look at par 4 scoring, par 3 scoring, and then with only 3 par 5s, I don't think they're going to have a big effect this week. So only 5% in the total par 5s. There's a look at the mixed condition model. Hopefully I've given you some insights on what I think could be wrong if the tournament plays differently than what I am envisioning on a Wednesday evening, where some weaknesses could be and what the biases are in the mixed condition model. But with that said, let's go ahead and go to the rankings. The reveal of my top 10 for the Open Championship this year goes as such. Number 1, Xander. Tony Finau is number 2. Scotty Scheffler 3rd. Rahm and Rose round out my top 5. Spieth, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Shane Lowry, and Victor Hovland round out my top 10. And as a reminder, I do put 3 different factors into my rankings. The FNGC rank, which is an analytics based purely by the numbers from Fantasy National just brought over. I do factor in percent owned as we are trying to find the unique plays for these, especially these big GPPs. We don't want to be chalky, so I do factor in percent owned. And course value normally is performance at the specific course with a major, and 3/4 of those majors rotate. This week's course value is an attempt at giving a player a value based on their previous history at Open Championships. That's why somebody like Cameron Young, I'll have to scroll down just slightly, has such a very low number. He's only played it once, but he finished runner-up last year. That's why his number is so low. Lower the number, the better. Somebody like Jordan Spieth, why he rises quite a bit. He has had a significant amount of success at the Open Championship. Finau, Scheffler, only twice played, but very good. Xander, combination with the projected low ownership and the course value, that's why he is rising to number 1. But there's a look at my top 10. I don't really have any qualms with the players here. Justin Rose is slightly surprising, especially being 5th. I thought he might sneak into the top 10 considering the year he's had, but here he is at 5th. He's actually played Open Championships pretty well. Scheffler, even with the high amount of ownership, is still 3rd. That's how good he has been. Rory, Morikawa, a former Open champion. So no real qualms with the list of 10, and you can always argue the ordering. But enough rambling about that. I want to save enough time for questions and lineup questions and lineup theory. So let's go ahead and sort on the price board and figure out where the chalk is and how we are going to able to maneuver around that. So in the 5 digits in the 10Ks, we have 7 players. Scotty Scheffler is at 12,500. Just an absolutely astronomically high price. Rory at 11.9, Rahm 11.2, defending champion Cam Smith at 10.7, Brooks at 10.4, Xander at 10.1, and Victor Hovland at 10,000 even. You see, Brooks Koepka is the lowest, and Cam Smith is pretty close to him. Look, the LIV players are going to be very low in my rankings this week. I did not normalize everything. That's the technical term. I didn't use the same filter for all of the stats, say difficult to par, to try to even out the LIV players or have them on an equal playing field. The LIV guys are just going to have their 2023 stats in there. So at most 3 tournaments, in Taylor Gooch's case, just 2 tournaments, except for the 2 metrics that we gather that has the windy filter. So these LIV players are going to be lower than even they usually are for me. And the fact that Cam Smith's still in the top 35, Brooks is still in the top 40, tells you that they are going to be pretty solid this week, I believe. In the 10Ks, look, Xander is my number 1 overall player by the rankings. I have to imagine he's going to be more than 10.5% owned. So I'm a little cautious with seeing this number. If he is indeed this unique, I have to believe Xander will be the number 1 player. Doesn't mean he's my choice to win, but I would take him number 1 overall based on his Open Championship record. I mean, the metrics are fantastic, and if he's indeed this unique, you'd be very, very happy. I mean, the price is very, very prohibitive, but it is very hard to ignore Scotty Scheffler and the absolute, monster season he's had. Even though he only has 2 wins, I don't think he's finished outside the top 15 in 7 months. It is unreal the kind of season he's having. Rory, off of his win at the Scottish, his price is going to be pretty difficult to navigate in a lineup and whatnot. At least for the members at Fantasy National, it looks like Cam Smith is the player in the 10Ks that is getting squeezed out or ignored, and I think that's incorrect to do. He's from Australia, so I would not worry about this windy or seemingly average good drives gained in the wind. His irons are still great. He's really good around the green, and of course, everyone knows about his putter. Top 5 in opportunities gained in the wind. If he is indeed the most unique player in the 10Ks, it's going to be very hard to not put Cam Smith in your player pool. Not saying you have to use him every single time, because I still have a lot of confidence in Xander, but Cam Smith would be very, very high if he is indeed the most unique player. Because I would have thought John Rahm would be, just because of his seeming struggles. Look, he's still number 2 in irons. He's still number 2 in greens this calendar year. He's the number 1 par 3 player in the field this week. For me, I do it all the time. It's a dangerous game, but I think I have to fade Brooks. And it's a dangerous game, but you can't play every single player in the 10Ks. I am a little bit cautious on Xander because I think he's going to be pretty much higher owned than this. I mean, by a significant amount. You can't ignore Scotty. Rory off his win and loves Open Championships. I mean, he's the defending champion of Hoylake, essentially. Victor Hovland should be fine. Now, again, if the around the green does come into play, and his around the green game is improved, but this is one of the areas you might want to consider backing off of Hovland if the winds really do pick up and the around the green matters. He is still pretty poor and around the green. So in the 10Ks, all I can go by is what I'm seeing. So I'll make Xander number 1, but I have to imagine he's going to be closer to 14, 15% owned. But based on this, I will make Xander number 1. I'll go Cam Smith number 2, especially if it's at 8.5%. That seems ludicrous to me. Third, I'll probably go Rory third, only because it's a little bit of price savings off of Scheffler. It's not much, but it's a little bit. And you're getting a little bit of an ownership discount. Not much, but a little bit. So Scheffler and Rory really do feel like 3A and 3B behind the two unique plays. I'll just go with Rory over Scotty Scheffler due to a little bit less in price, so I can, maybe not have to go to the absolute dregs of the 6K, and a little bit of uniqueness in ownership. I'll go Rahm 5th, Hovland 6th. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'll go Rahm 5th, Hovland 6th. And there's nothing wrong with Brooks. I'll play the dangerous game, and I'll lose if he plays well, because you can't use everybody in the 10Ks. Moving to the 9s, Cantley, Fowler, Jordan Spieth, Colin Morikawa, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tyrrell Hatton, Tommy Fleetwood, DJ, Shane Lowry, and Cameron Young. Just like I was mentioning with Xander, he's going to have to be more popular than this. There is no way Tommy Fleetwood's only 15%. He is going to have a whole lot of ownership. Tyrrell Hatton is going to have a whole lot of ownership. I just don't see these two players having this low of ownership in a major at 94 and 9,300. So I'm gonna guess that these two, Tommy might approach 20%. Tyrrell Hatton, I wouldn't be surprised if he got to about 17 or 18. With that said, I still think Tommy Fleetwood's a pretty darn solid play. I wouldn't get too hung up about the good drives gained. He is very good around the green. He does not get enough credit for how good he is around the green. Very good on the par 3s. Solid at the par 4s as well. So I really like Tommy Fleetwood, even with the higher ownership than Tyrrell Hatton. I think Hatton will be good. I just think it's fair. It's fair price, fair ownership, because you have to expect he's going to be higher than 14%. What I do agree with with the members of Fantasy National, I'm actually off of Fitzpatrick, even though he is top 25 in my rankings. He has not played Open Championships very well. His irons have not been top tier, for lack of better terms. He doesn't hit a whole lot of greens, at least compared to the elite players that he's priced with. So Fitzpatrick, for me, is going to be a fade. It's not much of one, because it doesn't seem like members of the Fantasy National community are gravitating towards him either. But Fitzpatrick's somebody I don't really want to bother with due to his lack of performance at Open Championships. For as much as Colin Morikawa's course value is even higher than Fitzpatrick, I think this is actually going to set up pretty darn well for Colin Morikawa. All about accuracy, and that's what drives his game. 6th in good drives gained, 3rd in approach, 3rd in greens. Even on slow greens, he is not abysmal with the putter. So I really like the way this sets up for Colin Morikawa this week. Spieth, a little bit concerning coming off of the miscut at the Scottish, but his Open Championship record is superb. I would have to think that he's going to be okay. He could, if he does get wayward enough, it's going to be an issue, but I'm willing to believe on the Open Championship form and the low amount of ownership. One of the live players I do have a strong feeling about is DJ. I do think DJ is going to play pretty darn well this week. His irons are generally not this bad. He has one bad statistic, and again, it's only collected from 2023. It's the par 4s. He demolishes par 5s if they end up being a bigger factor. He gives himself lots of opportunities in the wind. Good at par threes. Look at his performance on slow greens. Very, very good. I really like DJ this week. That is one of the live players that I will be gravitating towards. And I think it's going to be fair ownership. 12.5. I would have wanted it a little bit lower to be unique, much more unique than, Shane Lowry and Morikawa and whatnot. But 12.5 even I would be pretty happy with. And his Open Championship form is pretty solid. So I am going to gravitate to DJ. It's an Open Championship. Shane Lowry, I would think, is going to garner some attention. I still think it's going to suit him pretty well. It's fair ownership. It's fair pricing. I just like DJ $100 more. Cam Young, sure. He has not been in the best of form in 2023, so I do worry a little bit about that. But he is the number one player in giving himself opportunities in the wind. He seems like he's going to be unique. I said, I'm just pretty high on DJ, so I've been gravitating to DJ in the lower nines. But I suppose Cameron Young is a worthy speculation if you are in this, in the low nines, especially since he did runner up the Open last year. There's a look at the nines. I know we didn't talk about Cantley or Fowler. I've got a gut feeling on Cantley. A lot of it is due to the putting. He putts slow greens pretty darn well. He putts bent greens really darn well. So if that bent grass overseed ends up being dominant, or the grass type we should have looked at, Patrick Cantley is top 3. I know. I think he's first, but confidently he's top 3 in bent grass putting. So I do like Cantley quite a bit. He's getting hurt by the fact that his par 3 numbers aren't great, and he hasn't been particularly adept in the wind. But considering what the wind could be at Liverpool or in the United Kingdom for an Open Championship, it looks pretty calm this week. So I do like Cantley. Fowler's going to have a lot of ownership. It's a smart play. It's a solid play, but you're not going to be unique. So you're going to have to find uniqueness elsewhere if you're using Ricky. There's a look at the nines. We'll move to the eights. I've seen a few people touting Bryson. Okay. Look, he's just been very, very bad in the wind even before he went to live. The 2 wind metrics are in the deep red. I don't hate it, don't love it. I'm just at other places or at other players, in and around his pricing. So take that for how you will. Wyndham Clark, he's only played the Open once. He missed the cut. Much, much better player now. Should be okay, I guess. But he's going to garner some attention. Look, I'm still going to use Justin Thomas. He's at 4%. And if the winds do pick up, you're going to need a creative shot maker. And that's what Justin Thomas is. I'm not going to use a whole lot of him because his game is, he is struggling with his game right now. But 4% on a Justin Thomas who is very, very good in the wind, which the wind's always going to be there. He's 9th around the green. The putter, you can say that about several players. The putter has to cooperate. So I'm going to use a little bit of Justin Thomas. He will probably end up burning me, but I can't pass up a 4% Justin Thomas. I still don't understand why Max Homa isn't getting a lot of love. I know he hasn't played Open Championships particularly well, but he played the Scottish Open very well last week. I like Max Homa again, especially at a sub 8%. I have to think Tony Finau is going to be a little bit more popular than 10%. If he's not, you need to use all of the Tony Finau you can. His worst stat is par 3s. I mean, everything else is, excellent to elite. Top 20 par 4s, 3rd in opportunities in the wind on slow greens. We talked about how Morikawa isn't an abject failure. 31st. I mean, Finau, a little bit better. I can't say he excels or succeeds often on slow greens, but he's not an abject failure on slow greens. So if Finau is indeed at 10%, you need to hammer a lot of Finau. This seems like it will fit him very, very well. I just think he's going to be much more owned, like Xander, like Fleetwood, like Hatton. I do not see his ownership at 10%, but that's what Fantasy National has it at right now. Tom Kim, I think, could play well here, considering distance isn't a big factor. So don't ignore Tom Kim either. And Justin Rose is going to be popular, but it's a pretty solid play as well. So in the 8s, I'm just off of Hideki. I'm off of Bryson. I can understand it, I suppose, but I just like too many other players. I'm going to use Justin Thomas. It's going to burn me, but I can't pass up a 4% Justin Thomas. I was wrong about Sam Burns last week. I thought he was going to be way too wayward, and he ends up excelling at the Scottish Open. Again, I don't see this working out well for Sam Burns, so that means you probably should use Sam Burns. But I don't have a good feeling about Sam Burns. I'll use Max Homa. I'll be using Finau, and I'm hoping that he's this low, but I don't think he will be in ownership. Tom Kim should be a good play, and Rose is going to be pretty chalky for this area of the price board. Moving to the upper 7s. Connors is going to get a whole lot of love. A lot of that based on accuracy, putting the emphasis there. Number 1 in good drives gained, meaning fairways and greens. Top 15 in irons, hitting plenty of greens. Again, it comes down to the putter. So Connors is going to be very, very chalky. He might be worth a fade if you think the around the green game is going to be much more prominent than what I have factored in to the mixed condition model. I'm sure I'm going to have a little bit of Corey Connors, but I'm going to try to limit my exposure because he does seem like he will be widely used. Minwoo Lee, I mentioned it last week. He's always an enigma. He never rates out well, but I kind of have a feeling that Minwoo Lee might play well. I don't have anything to back that up with analytically. It's just kind of a gut feeling. I really like Keegan this week, and he does not rate out well based on, or others that I've mentioned. I really like Keegan this week. A lot of it's with the bent putting, which won't show here because we're only on Velcro. But if you follow me on social media, you'll know that there were 7 players that qualified under the criteria that I set forth in the research on Monday. Only one of those 7 was triple digits, at least when I posted the research in terms of odds. It was Keegan. Keegan was one of the 7 that qualifies. So I definitely put in a win wager. I like Keegan this week. We'll see how much of a doofus he makes me look like come next week. Reed and Neiman, again, the same thing with these live players. Really, DJ's about the only one that I'm gravitating towards. They're all going to rate lower than what they normally would. Reed is interesting. He putts well on slow greens, but he has not been good in the wind before he went to live. So take that what you will. Tagala, much like the same with Sam Burns, he just seems like he's way too sporadic, way too erratic for me. But he did play the Open well last year, I believe tied for 34th. So Henley, anytime you're talking about accuracy, you always talk about Russell Henley. Very good in the wind as well. So if Russell Henley's only at 10%, that's a worthy look in a play moving into the low 7s. McCarthy's getting a lot of love. I'm a little bit concerned with Denny McCarthy. Yes, he is the number 1 putter on slow greens. He's just probably the number 1 putter on the PGA Tour. But the opportunities in the wind have not been very good at all. He's never played an Open Championship, and while you don't have to have recent success at an Open Championship, you do need to have some amount of success at an Open Championship. That was part of the research. So I'm a little concerned with McCarthy. It might be a full fade for me. And if he plays well, then I'll just chalk it up to him being really hot right now. Because, I mean, the par 3s are very good. The par 4s are, superb, 6th. But I do worry about his performance in the wind. You like Henley? Yeah, I do too. None of these stats are bad. Like, all of these are deep green. He's 30th and around the green. He doesn't have any metrics on slow greens. He's not the best putter in general, but, I mean, we've said that about a lot of people. His worst is par 5s at 66th. So there is quite a bit to like with Russell Henley. I'm with you on that, P. Brian Harman's also getting a lot of love, and a lot of that's probably due to the current form. I don't think I want anything with Brian Harman, especially with the combination of lackluster irons and lackluster around the green. So I think I'm off of both of the chalkier 7,300 plays. The only other live player that I would gravitate towards is Abraham Answer, and he really destroyed me at the PGA Championship. I was really high on Answer, and he did not play well. He is all about accuracy. All about accuracy, and that's what I see playing is most important at Hoylake this week. So I would not be surprised if Abraham Answer showed himself on the leaderboard at some point with the emphasis on accuracy. You see, he's not rated out well because we're only using 23 statistics, and he's been really bad. But I mean, you even see in the wind, in terms of hitting fairways and hitting greens in regulation, it's been pretty solid. So that's the angle to use Answer with the heavy emphasis in accuracy. I don't love it, but I envision a scenario where Answer shows himself on the leaderboard. At the very bottom of the lower sevens, look, anytime you're talking about if you think it's going to get difficult, you might think, I'll take Answer at 3%. That's another part of it too, P. I mean, such the low ownership. I wouldn't want to go crazy about it. I wouldn't want to throw him in every single team, but he's probably somebody you want to have a singleton of, just to make sure, because I think he's going to play decent. In the very, very bottom of the sevens, look, Gary Woodland, if you think it's going to get difficult, he generally should play difficult courses well. He's in, and he plays well in the wind as well. Difficult and wind, that's what you think of. Difficult, long, and wind. Well, this isn't necessarily long. I think Gary Woodland might be okay. I am surprised Nikolai Højgaard's only at 3%. Good Denny Mac. Are you talking Mac Hughes? Good Denny Mac Pivot. Yes. Answer. Absolutely, because they're the same price. I got you. Yeah. Nikolai Højgaard, I would have thought he would have been pretty, I can't say chalky, but I would have thought his ownership would have risen considering how well he played the Scottish Open last week. He's an iron player. He's a ball striker. Very good at putting. Par 3s are good. I kind of like Nikolai Højgaard this week. Nick Taylor, I was fairly right about him, I guess. He did finish top 20 last week at the Scottish Open as a very unique play. Okay. His stats aren't nearly as good or eye-popping as they were last week for the Scottish Open, but he generally doesn't take himself out of the tournament. He's a good putter. The par threes are going to have to be better, sure, but Nick Taylor might be somebody to look at along the same lines of Højgaard and Answer, especially at the uniqueness that they are. I really like Chris Kirk this week. This is his worst stat, by the way, 46th. Chris Kirk. He has not played Open Championships extremely well. That is an absolutely fair statement to make about Chris Kirk. But he is in such fantastic form. He loves playing in the wind. It really does pick up. 33rd in irons. I mean, it's not great, but it's good. And he's 5th in putting, if that matters, more than I'm giving it credence to. So I really like Chris Kirk this week. Let's see. The worse the weather gets, again, look at Lucas Herbert. I know he might be last in my rankings, or at least close to it, but what did he do last week? He made the cut because the conditions got really bad for the Scottish for a day or two. The worse the conditions get, think about Lucas Herbert. He might be a showdown play more so than a full week play, but I need to give you all that information that the worse the weather is, the better he's going to play. All right, moving into the sixes, our fellow contestants are gravitating towards two players, kind of the same players I would have recommended anyway, Jordan L. Smith and Bobby Mack at 6,800. Both of them are, at or approaching 10%. That is very, very chalky for a 6K play, so I can't recommend either of them based on how chalky they are. They are garnering a whole lot of attention in the 6Ks for a good reason, but garnering a whole lot of attention in the 6Ks. If I have to choose one, it's going to be Bobby Mack. Although Jordan L. Smith, don't ignore. I mean, he's got some pretty darn good statistics here. But Bobby Mack has played Open Championships well. Let's see. If this does become around the green and short game focused, take a look at Brendan Todd. Number 1 in around the green. Decent putting on slow greens. He's just not been great in the wind. Again, 24th looks fine. He's the number 1 fairway player in the PGA Tour. He has to find the fairway or he is toast. So if he's the number 1 fairway player and he's still only 24th in good drives gained, that tells you the opportunities are bad, the greens are bad. If the more it becomes a short game contest, the more you'd want to consider Brendan Todd. I'm not in love with it. You can take a look at Emiliano Grillo. Again, I'm not crazy about it, but plays well in the wind, and his worst part of his game has always been his putter. It's starting to cooperate, and historically he's been okay. I mean, he's actually been pretty good on slow greens. So I don't hate the idea of an Emiliano Grillo. I know Putnam rates out well. I'm not there. I used Tom Hoge last week. I didn't mention him in the show. I ended up using him a little bit. He came through for me. I don't have strong feelings about Hoge this week. I mean, really, I'm going to try to avoid the sixes, but you're going to have to come down here if you're going to use a Scheffler or a Rory. So I'm reaching a little bit here with the Emiliano Grillo, the Brendan Todd. It's not pretty down here. At least for me, because I don't know a lot about the DP World Tour players. But that's what I have for you all in terms of a look at the price board. Let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers for players, or for those who play tiers contests. So get your questions ready for Classic and whatnot, and I'll be happy to answer those. But for tiers contests, in tier 1 we have Scotty Scheffler, Rory, and Rahm. Putnam, I'm just not there. Shoot, where'd he go? He's at 67, 65. I mean, he rates out extremely well. 15th in good drives gained, but again, he's like Brendan Todd. He's a fairway finder, so this has to be a high number for him. The around the green is pretty bad. He's not being good at par fours, for what that's worth. He is the number one putter on slow greens with Denny McCarthy. I guess I can understand it. What are my thoughts? Hey, Serve, thanks for jumping into chat. Much appreciated. I was really high on Bezadenhout last week, and he did not play well, obviously. He's not played Open Championships well. I think there are certain venues that Christian Bezadenhout will be okay for an Open Championship. I don't think this is one, because he's not terribly accurate off the tee. He's a short game player, regardless of what this around the green number is. He's a short game player, and with the emphasis on accuracy, I don't see this being a good fit for Bezadenhout, because he is not very accurate off the tee. He needs places like the Old Course. I'm trying to think of other Open Championships that have, forgivingly wide fairways. I think his game suits an Open Championship if it's the right course. I don't think Hoylake is that. So I'm out on Bezadenhout. The greens aren't good. Around the green, I'll forgive this. He just he's not been in good form this year. But even the putter's not been good on slow greens. I don't have a strong feeling with Bezadenhout. And I did back him last week at the Scottish. I really liked him. Yeah, absolutely. Fire up any questions you have. I'll be happy to give you what I see and what I think. But thanks for jumping to chat, Serve. Tier 1, we'll come to these tiers contests. Tier 1, Scotty Scheffler, Rory, and Jon Rahm. Oh man. You have to think that these two are going to be pretty darn popular. Rahm's a pretty clear third of the three. It all depends on how much uniqueness Rahm is to these other two. I'm going to go with Scheffler. He might be the most owned in the tier, but my God, the form that he is in is really, really hard to pass up. I don't blame you one bit if you take Rory in a tiers contest, but give me Scheffler. I'll try to find some uniqueness elsewhere. Tier 2, Cam Smith, Brooks, Xander, Victor, and Patrick Cantlay. I do have a strong feeling on Cantlay. Having said that, I still think the play is Xander or Cam Smith. I have to think Xander is going to be much more popular than this. So give me Cam Smith in Tier 2. I'm thinking Cam Smith will be closer to this ownership, even though I think he'll be higher owned than this, than Xander will be to his. So I'll take Cam Smith. Of course, he's coming off a win out on Live, wherever they were, just outside of London 2 or 3 weeks ago. So his game is fine. I'll take Cam Smith. It's really hard for me to pass up Xander, but I gotta believe he's going to be more owned than this. I think Hovland's a fine play, and like I said, I really do have a strong feeling on Cantlay, but that's more for classic. I think I would take Cam Smith and Xander pretty clearly in tiers. So give me Cam Smith in Tier 2. Tier 3, Ricky, Jordan Spieth, Colin Morikawa, Terrell Hatton, and Tommy Fleetwood. These two are going to dominate. Well, actually, I can see these three dominating the ownerships in tiers. I feel everyone will try to jam Rory and Scotty into lineups and try to make others fit. You might be right in that regard. You might be right. But we'll get to that in the Classic here in a moment. But I don't disagree with you. So these three look like they're going to dominate the ownership in a tiers contest. Now I know Morikawa is the third of these four. I have a suspicion that he's going to be pretty unique in a tiers contest. I could be wrong with that. But give me Colin Morikawa in Tier 3. I think in tiers he's going to get overlooked from Ricky, from Hatton, and from Fleetwood. If you're not concerned about ownership, I think it's probably Fleetwood. Man, that's kind of tough with Hatton and Fleetwood, but I think it's a pretty clear Colin Morikawa. Again, this is just a hunch or whatever that I think he'll get overlooked in tiers. Tier 4, Matt Fitzpatrick, DJ, Shane Lowry, Cam Young, Hideki, Bryson, and Wyndham Clark. For me, this is a 2-person tier. DJ or Shane Lowry. I will take DJ. I feel like I've gotten some uniqueness with Cam Smith, and I'm hoping uniqueness with Colin Morikawa. I think Shane Lowry is a fine play. Just give me DJ. I'm pretty high on DJ this week. Tier 5, Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, Max Homa, Sung Jae, Tony Finau, Tom Kim, Justin Rose, and Taylor Gooch. No, not necessarily. I'll show you why here in a second. Tier 5. I mean, Thomas is going to be really unique, but where's his game? This should fit Tony Finau pretty well. Tom Kim's also played the one Open Championship. He played it fine last year. Rose is the obvious choice, but I imagine he's going to be the most chalky. Might be Homa. If you're really needing a lot of uniqueness, if you've taken a whole lot of chalk, you might have to go Justin Thomas here, which I don't hate. But give me Tony Finau in Tier 5. It might be Max Homa, but I'll take Finau. I mean, he is number 2 in my rankings. And then finally, Tier 6, I'll scroll over and swivel out of the way for you all. Tier 6, Keegan, Patrick Reed, Sahith Theegala, Harris English, Gary Woodland, Phil Mickelson, and Bobby Mack. Ugh. Yuck. Keegan or Bobby Mack for me in this tier. I'll probably take Bobby Mack. Be a little bit safe with the last choice in the tier. I am very high on Keegan though, but it's an all or nothing type play. So I'll take Bobby Mack in Tier 6. All right, let me prep the classic lineups here. Why Morikawa's putting doesn't eliminate him. And you're right, that is clearly the worst part of his game. But when you look at the fact that these are going to be slow, they have to be kept slow due to the amount of wind that they get over in the UK and Scotland. He's actually been acceptable in his career on Velcro greens. He's also won an Open Championship before, so he can play this style of game. A big reason why I'm so high on Morikawa is just the emphasis on accuracy this week. The fairways, the greens, and the putter is not going to eliminate him, I don't think. He's actually shown he can be field average with the putter on slow greens. So I do like Morikawa this week. I don't think the putter is going to betray him on these slow greens. But there's that answer for you, Serve. All right, moving to classic lineups. I know we're a little bit over time, but I want to make sure I answer everyone's questions, so I don't mind sticking around, and don't hesitate to throw in your questions in chat. But if we're going to make what seems like a chalky lineup to try to work around, we're going to start with Scotty Scheffler, and we're going to do that because there are not one but two players in the 6Ks that are garnering attention, Jordan L. Smith and Bobby Mack. I'm going to start with Bobby Mack. I might have to use both. Good evening, Awaken. Thanks for jumping in chat. So many good plays this week. Yeah, I agree with you. We just missed, or I don't know if you were watching and just now jumped into chat or just now joined. We just went through the price board. A lot of interesting options for sure. Thoughts on 6K Ben Griffin doing some real dumpster diving? I mean, he played well at the Scottish. I know he made the cut, Do you know what his price is off the top of your head? Ben Griffin, there he is. 6,000. Whoa, you really are dumpster diving. I mean, he's been good around the green, and he's good on par threes. I don't hate it, I guess. The irons haven't been great. That would worry me. Of course, you know, if your irons aren't great, you're probably not hitting a bunch of greens. No YouTube notification. Hopefully there were. Hopefully that was just on your end, because I know I've had issues with that in the past. I'll have to check after the stream. But thanks for letting me know that. You know, looking at it, I don't hate it, I guess. Especially if you think it's going to be a short game contest, I can kind of see it, I suppose. I don't think I would go there, but I mean, you're also talking to somebody that, you know, has been known to recommend a few bare minimum plays. So as a 6,000 play, I don't hate it. Trying to build these chalky lineups, I'm going to try to only use one of these two 6Ks. These are the two 6Ks that are getting a whole lot of use. Xander can't play. V now, answer Homa Griffin is what I'm messing with right now. I don't hate it. We might have to use both Jordan L. Smith and Bobby Mack. I'm going to try only use one 6K. But if our fellow contestants are going Scotty, I don't see any way that they're able to even use a 9K. They might be able to. I'll try to use Tommy. He's fairly cheap and the most projected owned, but I mean, even with that, you're looking at low sevens. They're either comfortable going with two 6Ks, or they're going Scheffler almost all the way down to Justin Rose, would be my guess. I could be wrong, but they're going all the way down to Rose at 8,000. But this gives them a little bit more maneuverability in the sevens. They could probably use a Corey Connors in here that's getting a lot of love. Denny McCarthy is getting quite a bit of love. And then the last one, this is going to leave a little bit of money on the table, but the only other one that's getting double-digit ownership around this price is Harman. I mean, that's leaving $400 on the table, sure, but you know, this is just highlighting the difficulty of trying to use Scheffler. And I mean, he's in all-world form, but man, that price is so prohibitive. So very prohibitive. If they were to go Tommy and Jordan L. Smith, they're still at that 73. I think Corey Connors is a little bit too expensive, so this is that same Denny and Harman. So, however you think, I mean, it's exactly the same ownership too, 12.4. So, that's the way I envision most Scotty Scheffler lineups looking, unless you know a contestant is using a one-off, which I can't predict. But these two are getting a whole lot of attention in the 6Ks, probably because of Scheffler and Rory's prohibitive price. Looking at more of a balanced build, if our fellow contestants are building that, looks like they're going something Ricky Fowler, if I could type, looking something to the effect of Ricky. Again, this would probably be Tommy, but we'll use Terrell Hatton in the interest of using some different names. I will bottom out. Siwoo Kim's right at 10%. We'll try to bottom out at Siwoo Kim and see how this works. Corey Connors would be in this. I would love to use a different name. It is what it is. Minwoo Lee, Russell Henley, perhaps. Definitely Rose. I'm going to have to come off of Hatton, I think. We'll go Hatton to Shane Lowry's getting a little bit of love there. Then 8,100 is Tom Kim. Not exactly the most projected owned player, but this will be 100 over. But this looks like a common balanced build, if you will. You know, lose $100 somewhere, but just trying to give you an idea of some of the names. You know, if you put McCarthy or Harmon here, this ownership's going to rise a little bit. Connors is about the only upper 7 that's getting a lot of attention, really. Let's see, Scott. I'll highlight down to 75. Yeah, I mean, it's all Connors in the upper 7s. That's another reason why I was mentioning Keegan Bradley, Russell Henley, you know, these alternatives to there. So if we're going to try to maneuver around all this chalk, I'll try to do it with a Stars and Scrubs lineup. It's going to be pretty darn difficult, especially since me personally, I don't like much in the 6Ks. I would probably bottom out at Emiliano Grillo, me personally, but if there's a player down here that you have strong feelings about, and again, I'm not going to have any information on these DP World Tour players. I've been upfront about that from the very beginning of this week, and since I started the channel, I don't collect stats from the DP World Tour. It is not my purview. If you have a strong feeling on one of these guys, or you got a tip from another content creator, by all means, use it. You're not going to offend me any. I don't collect DP World Tour. I don't know these players. So if you have a strong feeling, by all means. But I'm going to bottom out at Grillo, and I'm going to try to get a little bit of uniqueness off of Scheffler. I'm not terribly concerned about the win last week for Rory. I still think he's got plenty of motivation or whatnot, or energy. Sometimes you have that letdown off a win. I think he's going to be just fine this week. He's already shown he can play Hoylake. So I'll go with Rory in the interest of trying to save a little bit of money and a little bit of ownership. If we're going to go Stars and Scrubs, I would really, really like to try to get up here into the 9s. But it's going to be pretty darn difficult. Instead, I might just do a couple of 8s. And look, his game is who knows where right now, but if you're getting a 4% on Justin Thomas with the wind, he's very creative, so he's got the shots to be able to contend here at Hoylake. It's a worthy speculation in my mind. I still don't understand why Homa isn't getting a whole lot of love. Well, I guess I understand he's not played Open Championships well, but my goodness. 15th in irons, solid. I mean, second in par 3s, which I think are going to be pretty important this week. Solid in the par 4s. I understand if you're not there, but I like Homa. I think Tony Finau, he's probably going to be a little bit more chalky than 10%. He's going to get more use than 10%, but I mean, Tony Finau should fit this course very, very well. We've got basically 7,400 per player. We're not anywhere close to that magic 10% number. You might be able to take Corey Connors here if you wanted to, but there are plenty of options. I've mentioned Russell Henley, a little bit more on the higher end of the ownership. Ryan Fox is somebody we didn't talk about. I like a decent amount. He's played Open Championships fairly well. He's from Australia. I wouldn't worry about the wind metrics. They haven't been great since he's been on the PGA Tour, but I mean, he's just generally a solid player. I've talked about Answer and the emphasis on accuracy this week. Chris Kirk is somebody that I really, really like this week. So if we go as low as we can and go with a Chris Kirk at 7,000, I mean, that's the 7,700 for Corey Connors. If you're there, you're still not hitting the 10%, magic number in terms of you're probably looking at a unique lineup here. If it's not JT, if it's not Grillo, if it's not Kirk, you're probably looking at a unique lineup here with Rory, who has just as much chance as anybody to win this. Finau, excellent form. Corey Connors is the ultimate accuracy player. A decent lineup here and a decent uniqueness as well. Let's see. If we want to try maybe Cam Smith, who I think is going to be all right this week, we go Cam Smith. Yeah, we can try Cam and Xander. Other than Ben Griffin, anybody else have solid ideas in the 6Ks, or you want to ask? I know Putnam was something, or somebody had mentioned or asked. I know he rates out well. I just don't have a strong feeling about Putnam. Let's see. Elsewhere here. Yeah, for me, I'm not really all that comfortable below Grillo. But if there's a play that somebody really likes, I'll throw them into a lineup and we can make a stars and scrubs real quick around it. Because I'm generally going balanced and just trying to find uniqueness in and around the balanced lineup build. Dietrich, okay. Makes some sense, I suppose. Doesn't have a lot of great statistics, but I can understand the thought process behind it. Decent the putter, par threes, par fours. He's been very good. Okay. In fact, I would probably go Ben Griffin over Dietrich, just based on what I'm looking at here. Stallings, saw him. There he is. Yeah, no, I'm nowhere near Stallings with that. I mean, there's some deep red in here. So, yeah. Not there with Stallings. I like Dietrich more than Stallings, but I've liked Griffin the highest of the three that you mentioned there. We're talking about accuracy. I know he's 87 years old, but you can take a look at Zach Johnson. For that matter, if you're talking accuracy and all that stuff. Todd the God. If this becomes a short game tournament, a short game type event, then yes, I can understand it. He's all about hitting fairways, around the green, putter. Let's throw in Dietrich. We'll say Dietrich. If we go Cam Smith, Xander, you add Xander, Cantlay, Finau, which is going to be something close. I'll just maybe deviate a little bit from it. Cam Smith, Xander. Don't know if we'll have an opportunity to go in the nines, but somebody we haven't used yet, Tom Kim, I think will be just fine here this week, especially with the emphasis on accuracy. So Tom Kim go into the eights, and then there's that magic 70-350 we have for two players again. Answer, who we've talked about, and English and Fox and Henley. I'll throw in Højgaard in this. I kind of like Nikolai Højgaard. That leaves us at 76. It's just Keegan. I like Keegan quite a bit this week. So there's a different look of a quote stars and scrubs. You're more balanced in this way because you have Smith and Schauffele and you're using Tom Kim, but more of a stars and scrubs look, or another different type of stars and scrubs look, and you're at 6.5%. I don't know why you would think I'm a gambler. I had no idea why, but if I were a betting man, I would imagine this is a unique lineup. I don't see anyone else submitting this lineup here. All right, last one, and again, feel free to throw out questions, but last one that I'm going to talk through vividly with you all, show you what I've been doing in terms of balanced lineup. And as much as I want to believe in Spieth, I'll just take the player that I'm confident in. I'll go with Colin Morikawa, and I'm very high on DJ this week. So I'll go Morikawa, DJ. I don't hate the idea of maybe trying to squeeze in another, like Shane Lowry or Cam Young, if you're there. I don't know. And I don't think I'm going to do that. But what you can do, on top of, either Justin Thomas, we've used Homa as well. If you're there with Sam Burns, I'm personally not, but we'll go Max Homa, Finau. And again, look, we've got this Magic 7,300 for 2 players. I don't necessarily love the Abraham Answer play, but I understand it because of all the accuracy. Me personally, I'd probably go something like Harris English or Russell Henley or Ryan Fox. But we have Højgaard would fit in this. Chris Kirk we've used. So plenty of options. Trying to throw in a different name here. Maybe Nick Taylor, Gary Woodland, okay, I suppose. But if it were me, I would go Russell Henley and Højgaard. Going to be a little bit more highly owned than the Stars and Scrubs builds, just because you're maneuvering around players that are getting used, just not as much. But you're still looking at more than likely a fairly unique lineup here at 9.5. So 10% is generally that magic number. But Colin Morikawa, a former Open champion, DJ has had lots of success with Open championships. He's about the one live player I'm really gravitating towards, and I might throw Answer in a lineup or two. I'm a little gun shy since he really killed me at the PGA, but Homa or JT. I'm not there with Sung Jae this week, but in the lower 8s, Homa and Finau, Tom Kim. I mean, if you feel like you have the capability to do so, you could take a Justin Rose. And then I think there are plenty of options in the low 7s. And that's why I've been gravitating towards these lineups as opposed to the Scotty Scheffler and the Rory McIlroys, because I'm not crazy about the 6s or the 5s for that matter. But there's a few lineups for you. I'll stick around for a couple minutes if there are any more questions. Alex Fitzpatrick, I mean, okay. I've seen him once in the Zurich Classic. Okay. I just don't have any info on him, really. Feel free to throw in some more questions. As a reminder, we have about 2 to 3 hours before lineups lock. And if you are not a subscriber to Gabe's Substack chat or article, I highly suggest you do so. He will be jumping into his chat at some point tonight. He just didn't know when, as him and his family had some plans. But I will be over there in his chat, continuing the DFS talk over there. So if you are not a subscriber to his article, highly recommend you do so. It's a great read. And Gabe was kind enough to jump into chat last night for a little bit for the Barracuda. But if there aren't any more questions, I want to thank P and Serve and Awaken for jumping into chat. It's much appreciated. You all have been around for quite a while and have helped me grow this channel to what it is now, and hopefully continue to grow it in the future. And thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. It's always appreciated. Love what I do. Looking at sports statistics, trying to win a little bit of money in the process, and hopefully giving you all some decent advice every once in a while. A reminder that I'll be over in Gabe's Substack chat, and my betting card will be out later this evening over on Twitter if you would like to see the wagers that I make this week for the Open and the Barracuda. So for all of the wagers you've made this week for the Open Championship for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Open Championship for this weekend and every weekend. May all your bets be profitable.